Mike's Daily Podcast.
It has been, over 2 weeks since we've done
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And I wish I could have brought you one sooner, but life was crazy, life was out of control. And I think I fell into a busy hole of stuff that I had to do, including travel and go to places that were new and cool. And I met some wonderful people. You'll love to hear all about them, as I'm going to talk about them on the show that's called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I can't tell you how much I love
Mike's
doing this podcast
Daily.
But then my
podcast
work life seems to absorb a lot of my time. And thusly, I cannot do a show. It's episode 2316, 2316. Mike Matthews, Cafe Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valentino today, the last place on earth. I went across this great country to the land of Florida. And in Florida, I saw my mom, who I hadn't seen in over 3 years. And my lovely lady friend finally got to meet my mother in person. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. But busy, very busy. We didn't want to burden my mother with us staying at her house, so we stayed at a hotel not too far from her, and it was wonderful. Let me tell you, I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff. I'm going to unload. I haven't done this podcast in 2 weeks. It has been 2 weeks. Wow. Wow, Shuts, wow. That's a segment I used to do because my mom calls me Shuts. And when I tell her something interesting, she goes, wow, Shuts, wow. So here is what happened in the past 2 weeks. First, I had to get ready to go on my trip, which was going to be over a week long. And that required a lot of getting stuff ready.
And here's today's podcast picture.
It's of Daytona Beach, actually Ponce Inlet, which is a little bit south of Daytona Beach. It goes Daytona Beach, then Daytona Beach Shores, and then you've got Ponce Inlet. And this day was so rainy that we were at the beach. I had just gotten out of the water when I took this picture, which you can see at mikesdailypodcast.com, or perhaps where you are listening to this podcast, you can see the podcast picture. It sometimes pops up in a little window. But I got out of the water. It was so warm, so lovely. And I look over and I go, oh, that doesn't look good. Oh, Basil, you would have loved this beach, running on this beach. Basil, the late, great Basil the boxer. So I dry off. We sit in the car for a while. It starts to rain. It starts to pour. We think maybe it's going to pass. It doesn't pass. It hung out. That rain lasted a good couple of hours. We tried to duck in to a little covered restaurant near the water, near the Halifax River, which is practically right next to the ocean there. You're in a peninsula basically there. And we hung out for a while, observed some interesting Floridians. Looked like a older couple on a date because they were making googly eyes at each other. The woman looked interesting, lots of makeup. I don't know if in fact she was a woman, could have been something, maybe not exactly a woman, but was looking sort of like a woman. I don't know. It wasn't exactly clear. I was a little confused. But I'm 52 years old. Sometimes I don't absorb all the information that I need to when I'm observing things. So I am then having a wonderful time with my lovely lady friend and my mom. And we go, hey, let's leave. The rain stopped. So we start to drive back up out of Ponce Inlet. Now, Ponce Inlet is, in fact, the end of the peninsula. Then there's a harbor, the Ponce Inlet Harbor. Boats can go out of there. Across from where we were, just south of us, is then New Smyrna. But we're driving out of this area, which is mostly residential homes. And not the biggest streets, and let's just say stuff doesn't drain so easily in Florida because it is flat. And stuff doesn't slope away from the streets. In fact, it stays on the streets. So I had to drive through a couple of lakes. Yes, lakes. Though it really was deep. And my mom has a RAV4 that's pretty old. It's lasted a long time. Kudos to that car. It saved our bacon because the tires are pretty thick on a RAV4, are pretty tall, pretty large, and so it kept us up from the water. But meanwhile, cars are going the other direction and splashing us. And for this Californian, and as you know, Californians, we cannot drive in rain. We go nuts. We go insane in the rain. So in the membrane in the rain, and I just kept it cool. And I'm hearing the car making these weird sounds, like when the water got up. It felt like it was going up under the chassis. It hit some parts of the engine, made that sound like when your power steering is going. Oh, it was nerve-wracking. But we got out of it. We got out of Ponce Inlet. Once you get to Daytona Beach shores, then it's better. The water's you're in more of a, how do I say, there's a bigger road. So the water has more places to go. It doesn't stay on the street, doesn't pool. So that was exciting. That's what that podcast picture is of. But my podcast friend, and thank you for being so patient and rediscovering this podcast. And please tell other people about this podcast. And remember that I am doing a special radio show Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time. And the link is at mikesdailypodcast.com. You can listen to that show that I'm doing with some great music, greatest hits. It'll be fun radio stuff. You can hear it. There's a link at mikesdailypodcast.com. But this was a very busy trip because we wanted to spend as much time with Mom. But we also wanted to spend some time at the hotel that I paid good money for. And there was also the continental breakfast that I had to get downstairs to enjoy before it closed up. Why do they have those things so dang early? I would like to sleep in, go down, get my breakfast, come back up. Why does it? And a lot of those wrap pastries and yogurt. And there was no waffle maker, which was kind of sad, but they had, and that might have been because it's the pandemic still. But they had pancakes that they made in the kitchen, put under a little cover. You could get those. As we go outside a cafe anyways, we bring in Mike's Daily Podcast. Somewhere in Podcastro Valentino. And little syrup containers. This whole pandemic thing has been a boom for companies that make packaged stuff. The bagels, even the bagels were packaged. And you know, I just now thought of that I opened a package to have a bagel. I put it in the toaster, and then I forgot all about it and left it in the continental breakfast area. There's still a bagel probably sitting there in Daytona Beach, waiting to be picked up by me. But all this packaging, that's a lot of plastic. That's a lot of waste. Just saying. So we did that. We did that trip. I saw a lot of people without masks in Florida. I saw a lot of people in Texas. We then went to Dallas. Not in the airports, of course. You got to wear a mask, but still some people don't. And then, but you know, when you sit down to eat, you can take the mask off. And I just don't like flying with a mask. I know you have to. And I know I'm probably protecting myself from stuff other than the coronavirus by wearing a mask, and my fellow travelers also wearing a mask. But it's not fun wearing a mask on a plane. You can take it off when you start to eat something, if they bring you a little, but the lady sitting next to me coming back from Dallas, and that's when the trip did not take a nice turn. The lady sitting next to me was coughing a lot. Now, she was older. She might have had asthma because I saw her pull out an inhaler. But that was a little nerve-wracking. And then I was hungry because we sat on the tarmac for an hour. It was not enjoyable. And so, I had to take my mask off to eat something. But and then I had to sit in between her. She was in the aisle. I was in the middle. And then the guy by the window. Nobody pulls up the window sheet covers anymore. I don't know what's going on outside of the plane. Used to be fun when you flew in a plane. You could look out of the window and go, oh, wow, I'm over the Grand Canyon. How cool. Oh, wow, I'm over that thing in the desert that focuses, it's got a million mirrors in a circle, and it focuses all the sunlight, solar power into this one orb that's glowing. And how come that doesn't burn up the whole world? That if it's capturing the power of the sun, what is that in the middle of the desert that you see as you're flying in to California from Dallas? What is going on? The pilot even pointed it out. He said, don't look directly at it, though. You'll hurt your eyes, which we all did. I hope he didn't. Well, I guess he didn't because we landed okay. What is that solar powered thing out in the desert? That is the weirdest, and it's been out there forever. I remember as a kid seeing that out there. But you never hear about it. I should look it up, but I'm ranting about other stuff. Thank you. And then I'm on the plane. Oh, so American, some planes have the little TV screen that's in the seat, others don't. Somebody I know just recently flew American, and they did have the TV screens. Mine didn't. We also flew on Delta to get from Florida to Dallas. Those had TV screens. I watched Rick and Morty. Yes, that is some comedy genius, but wow, lots of F-bombs and S-bombs, and wow, the language is not exactly clean on that show. Anyway, Cafe Anyway, we're flying from Daytona Beach to Dallas, and they've got this thing, Delta has this thing, hey, we have a selection of podcasts you can listen to. And I listen to these podcasts, and I'm thinking, why is my podcast not featured on this? Why is my podcast get maybe 20 downloads a week? What is, when these podcasts, these popular podcasts, have the worst sound quality, the worst production I have ever heard. Some of these podcasts, who wastes their time listening to that? A lot of people do. It blows my mind, the taste in podcast today. What's this about? I mean, I don't get it. Just pointing that out in today's world as I'm being observant about stuff and absorbing everything around me after this interesting trip. Oh, and then last night, Sebastian Gorka was in Fremont, conservative talk show host, and I actually heard him say to someone who threw out a conspiracy theory in the audience, and kudos to Gorka for taking questions from the audience, just very improvisationally, and somebody threw out a conspiracy theory, and Gorka said to this person, do not indulge in conspiracy theories. It's going to hurt Republicans. It's going to hurt the conservative movement. And I have not heard a conservative talk show host say that yet. So I was like, what did I just hear? It's interesting because there are so many conspiracy theories. He even acknowledged this. And you hear a lot of it on conservative talk radio. You hear a lot of it. Well, you read a lot of it on the internet. As we all know, Mark Zuckerberg isn't helping out at all. We thought he was. No, he's not. Oh, wait. I naively thought he was. I thought he had changed his stripes after the 2016 thing. Nope. But that's another topic for another day. Anyway, Cafe Anyway, that was a very interesting evening. I talked to a lot of interesting people there. Talked to a farmer who was from Sebastopol. A very nice guy. He, however, did not want to get the vaccine. As you know, I don't quite understand that line of thinking. I'm like, why do you want to expose yourself? But okay. Somebody also in the audience was apparently at Gitmo from 2003 to 2006. So, yeah, a very interesting group of people that was in the Bay Area. From the Bay Area that was at this event. That was very conservative leaning. And the Bay Area, as you know, is not. So now that's me back at work. Because as you know, I work for a company that's got all kinds of different talk stations and a lot of conservative talk stations. So I find that format very interesting because there's some truth and then there's some hysteria in all talk radio. In all podcasts, you've got to take everything with a grain of salt, what you hear.
Wrong.
So I guess what I'm trying to segue into is that other than work, back to the trip, I should say. As we go back to the trip, I just want to talk about that for just a split second. This is the split second I wanted to say that in Texas, we hung out with my lovely lady friend's cousin, who is a hard-working parent. Has a lovely 9-year-old daughter, and she and her husband, very hardworking, but just wonderful parents of this young girl, and who will someday be a lady, who will someday do wonderful things, I know, because she's a very talented person. But this is what I wanted to say about the parents. It's hard work. No duh. I know you know this if you're a parent. But let me just say, as I was kind of helping out with the parenting sort of on this trip, that and talking to this person who is a parent, oh my, some things to remember if you are a parent or if you're thinking of being a parent. If you ever feel the urge to scream or find you are dragging yourself around in a fog of exhaustion, which believe me, I was at some points during the trip, you can't pay a lot. If you can't pay a lot for childcare, there are other options. Find another mom in the neighborhood and swap a few hours of childcare each week. Try Share Care, says consumer.healthday.com. If a babysitter watches 2 babies, each family pays less than they would for one-on-one care. A responsible friend, family member, or babysitter can watch the baby while you nap or have a spa day at home. If you're worried about a babysitter's abilities, have her take care of the baby while you're in the house so you can watch her while getting a little more time to yourself. Yes, so that you see their style. Check local parenting resources for more ideas. Trusting someone. Trust is an interesting thing, isn't it? Trusting someone, it's you gotta do as much as you can to see if you trust this person. Now, stuff may come up after the fact, and you're like, oh, wait, what? Huh? And you just have to, this stuff, people are strange, aren't they? To quote Jim Morrison, I mean, really. So you just have to do your best. Do as much research as you can. But please, make sure you eat, says consumer.healthday.com. You need to eat well to stay healthy, keep up your energy, and produce enough milk if you're nursing. That's a fact. Oh, which, by the way, back to the conspiracy theory thing. When Gorka was answering this conspiracy theorist statement, he said, please don't indulge in conspiracy theories. Get the fact. I felt so good to... I need more conservative talk show hosts and just people in general to remember facts. You got to get the facts. And yes, the last president said fake news. But is it really fake news? What are the facts? So that was good to hear that. And I hope that people do, don't be fast and loose with the facts, as some have been, as you know. So you need food, though. That's a fact. We all know that. If you're too tired to shop or cook, or too rushed to make a meal and sit down to eat, maybe you can stock up on healthy packaged foods, or have heat and eat meals delivered rather than takeout. Nuts, dried and fresh fruit, and yogurt are other choices. Taking a daily multivitamin is a good idea. Take mini breaks throughout the day. After you put the baby down for a nap, take a 10-minute break to recharge. The dishes, laundry, and vacuuming can wait a little longer. Take a shower, make some tea, sit down with a magazine, or sit in the garden and clear your head. If your baby's being cranky, plop them in the stroller or carrier and go out for a little walk. The fresh air will help you both. I see a lot in California, a lot of people with strollers, and it makes me happy. As someone who doesn't have children, it makes me see you're spreading happiness everywhere. Somebody said to me they heard my podcast while I was on my trip, and they said, "Hey, why are you so dang happy? You always sound happy on your podcasts." And this was a parent who said this, and I said, "Well, actually, I don't do the podcast when I'm not happy. It's usually when I'm stressed because of work and I don't have time to do the podcast, so I'm not happy. It just works out that way. Otherwise, it is Mike's daily podcast. But honestly, I'm not happy every day. I've done the podcast when I'm not happy. And it's a part of life. We're sometimes just not happy. If you're not happy all the time, there might be something to look at. But you need to make time for yourself and the things you love. Parenting is a hard job, but like any other job, you can't be expected to work every waking minute. Whether it's for half an hour or half a day, you need to get away from the house sometimes and indulge your interests or guilty pleasures. Schedule dates with your partner. New parents often find that they rarely sit down and talk. If your relationship needs a boost, you both need to make it a priority. Just like grocery shopping or paying the bills is a priority. If your child isn't sleeping well at night, try a daytime date. A long lunch, a hike, or a walk around the neighborhood. It goes back to walking, doesn't it? Don't forget to exercise. Stay in touch with your old self. Make new friends. Plan ahead. Use time savers. The phone and internet are your friends. Find some places where you and your baby can both relax. You don't want to feel trapped in your home. Get to know the tot-friendly parks in your area and the good places to meet other parents. Keep it simple. Do some social networking, laugh and let some things go, embrace your kids, flaws and all. Your kids are going to get angry over little things. They're going to talk back. They're going to be mind-bendingly irrational. Why? Because they're kids. You can't help them keep those moments few and far between. You can help keep them far between, but you should not expect them to be perfect. After all, your children are more than willing to accept your flaws. So you're simply returning the favor. This from consumer.healthday.com, and DP Brar wrote that. So there you go. A little help to you if you're a parent. Now, just wanted to say, as we go outside, well, we are outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcaster Valentino. I found that my job, which can be all-encompassing and can bother me on the weekends, I had to push it all away. I had to say, you know what? I am in another state. I am not going to think about it. I'm going to shut it all down. And that was a first for me. I had not done that in over 3 years, so it was very good, and I suggest you do the same thing. Look who's here. Hi, Mike. It's Benita the rodeo queen. How you doing?
It's a disgruntled fiddle player. Tell you what.
What?
It's good to be back, Mike. It's good to see you. It's good to see everybody here at Cafe anyway. Tell you what.
What?
That's all I had. Look at all these pumpkins.
Yeah, lots of pumpkins. Look who else is here.
Oh, Mark, I make the list. Root beer, have some right now.
I have more. Thank you.
Drink it right now. I'll cut you.
Okay, I'll drink it right. Oh, pumpkin flavored root beer. Delicious. Hey, I have lots more stories to tell from my trip, as you can tell. It'll probably take up most of the next podcast, and hopefully I can do podcasts daily again. But I get interrupted. But please, you can call me and tell me what you think. 336-MM Daily. 3 plus 3 equals 6. MM is in Mike Matthews. Daily is in what this podcast will try to be again. I get interrupted, as you know, but it's been a busy couple of days, couple of weeks between my trip and having conservative talk show celebrities in the area and taking care of all the other stuff. So please, any suggestions you want to give, please, you can do so. 336-MM Daily. 3 plus 3 equals 6. MM is in Mike Matthews. Daily is in what this podcast is. And more about all that, here's a frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.
And next show will be Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley. Catch some of the past podcasts at mikesdailypodcast.com.